Voters in another 4 states head to the polls tomorrow, and after another weekend of primaries, the final picture is really not much clearer today. What we do know is that the candidates are taking each other on with the intensity of 1,000 suns.
I voted to save the auto industry. He voted against the money that ended up saving the auto industry. I think that is a pretty big difference.
Well, if you are talking about the Wall Street bailout, where some of your friends destroyed this economy.
You know.
Excuse me, I'm talking.
Let him respond.
If you're going to talk, tell the whole story, Senator
Let
Sanders.
me tell my story, you tell yours.
I will.
Your story is for voting for every disastrous trade agreement and voting for corporate America.
That was last night's alternative to Downton Abbey. The Democratic debate was a model of civility, though, compared to the Republican cage match of a few nights before. Joining me to talk about the state of the race after a wild weekend are Marilyn Thompson, deputy editor of Politico. Love Politico. Nice to see you. Jesse Mermel, former communications director for Governor Patrick and a Hillary Clinton supporter. Good to see you, Jesse. Jeff Deals, a Republican state rep from Whitman, who's co-chair of the Trump effort in Massachusetts. Representative, it's good to see you, too. Let me start with you. We're going to do some potential trouble spots for the leaders and then maybe some good news. So Mitt Romney eviscerates your candidate during the day. Then we have this parade of vulgarities Thursday night, and then this happens. Let's look at Saturday's results in the 4 primaries and caucuses. While they were split, which I guess is good news by some standards, Ted Cruz was much closer winning 4 than Donald Trump was. And let's move a little bit further to Louisiana, which was the delegate-rich state, as the pundits like to call it. There it is. Look at the early votes for Donald Trump, and then Election Day votes, a dead heat. Is it just possible that finally this guy's rhetoric is catching up with him, Representative Deal?
Well, I'll say this, first of all. The states that Ted Cruz did well in, I think he was expected to do well in. The other thing is, I think what this clearly did was disqualified Marco Rubio from the race.
Maybe it did.
I think Marco Rubio is a different person than he started out in this campaign. Desperation kind of played in. And so I think that had a big effect on that.
Well, by the way, the latest poll out of Florida has the Trump lead down to 8 points from double digits. So one might argue that little Marco, as your guy calls him, may be ready for a little rise from the ashes.
As the senator, losing his own state by 8 points right now, that's kind of crazy.
But how about my question? Doesn't this signal some trouble? All of a sudden, there's some rough spots for your guy. No, Saturday was not a great day.
You know, clearly when you have an establishment person like Mitt Romney coming out and making the case against him, it's going to have some sort of damage, but I think people are getting beyond that. Michigan, which Mitt Romney came from, seemed to have no effect. He's still, Donald Trump has a pretty increased lead up there. Can
we go back to Mitt for a second? You know, there were 2 bodies of conventional wisdom. I love that when they don't agree. One saying it's going to do a little damage. Others say it's great for Trump. The more this so-called establishment piles on the guy that hates the establishment, the better it is for him. Who's right here?
I think there's no question but that the anti-establishment forces that are driving Trump really don't care what Mitt Romney thinks, and probably had no discernible impact on how they feel about the candidate. But it's still media. It's free media, whether he says one thing or another and Trump comes back to rebut him. That's what's been driving this Trump effort from the beginning. It's all just the story.
Are you and your fellow Democrats still laughing at this Trump candidacy? You're not anymore, are you?
No, we're absolutely horrified, both, I think, as patriots, because what he's doing, I think, is absolutely terrible for the country.
I mean about losing. I don't mean
about the
content.
Well, that's the second part. And I think we're taking him very, very seriously. You know, Hillary Clinton had a moment on one of the nightly comedy shows, I forget which one, it was a few months ago, where she said, you know, it started out being funny and it stopped, and she's taking him very, very seriously. I haven't heard an activist or an elected official here in Massachusetts not take him seriously for some time now. We know he's a real threat and he's incredibly dangerous.
Representative?
Can I just add something? The Super Tuesday we had here in Massachusetts, 20,000 Democrats unenrolled and switched over to vote for Donald Trump. He had 45,000 more votes in Massachusetts than Mitt Romney did 4 years ago. He's clearly reaching a broader audience than the Republican base.
Well, that was before the hands, too. Who knows what kind of impact? I'm serious. We don't know what the impact's going to be. Now, let's, in fairness, since I think that's a problem for your guy, let's talk about what I consider to be a benefit. Here's a little excerpt from Bernie Sanders on last night, and then a little excerpt from Donald Trump at Thursday night's debate. Listen up.
We are getting absolutely crushed on trade. With China, we're going to lose $505 billion in terms of trades. You just can't do it. Mexico, $58 billion.
Permanent normal trade relations with China cost us millions of jobs. Look, American workers should not be forced to compete against people in Mexico making 25 cents an hour.
Same guy. I mean, we were in New Hampshire. We encountered so many people who said, we're undecided. Who are you voting for? Well, it's between Trump and Sanders, between Sanders and Trump. They're talking the same talk to the same people, are they not? Which is good news for his guy and bad news for your woman, is it not?
I think it actually could be bad news for Trump.
Why?
Because assuming that Hillary Clinton is the nominee, or rather for Trump during the Republican primary, because they can go out and continue to point to the fact that he's not a conservative, he's not someone who comes at things from an ideology, and in fact he agrees with Bernie Sanders on trade. I think it's a potential weak spot during your primary.
How about in a final? Assuming your person is the nominee, when she needs every single Sanders voter she can grab, he's appealing to the exact same blue-collar, angry at these horrible trade deal constituencies, no?
They might be angry, but I don't think they layer hate on top of that. And that's what Donald Trump has been doing. And I have a really hard time imagining that the Bernie Sanders voters who are not embracing hate at all as part of their message will go to someone who has been so incredibly negative and against huge segments of the
We know what
American
you think. Let's hear what the impartial thinks. You're a little Trump obsessed, though. Can I say that? Having read your stuff, is that a fair statement?
I'm only obsessed because my background is investigative reporting,
that.
and I find some of the threads of this extremely interesting and worthy of further scrutiny.
How about that thread, by the way? How about the thread of the commonality? And I'm not suggesting
I
they're the
think
same
that's a
poem.
really interesting thread, and I would have to say I've never seen it pointed out in just the way that you did. I think it's a great story.
And so
maybe
where
we'll
are you
steal
on
the
this?
idea.
I was just going to say, you know, back when Ronald Reagan was running, Gerald Ford was considering trying to get himself to be the nominee, a replacement nominee. Gerald Ford called Ronald Reagan dangerous at the time. This is a tactic that's used really on our side right now, and I haven't even heard the messaging from the Democrats. It's been mostly Republicans like Rubio trying to make that case, and I don't think
Der
it's gonna stick.
Spiegel, which I'm sure you read, said
Daily,
Donald
right?
Trump is the most dangerous man in the world. Check it out. Okay, let's go to the other side. Now, I would
This is
argue
Germany?
Exactly.
Okay, thank you.
I was not kidding, but I was sort of kidding. Let's go to the other side for a minute. On Face the Nation with John Dickerson, Hillary Clinton is there, and he's talking to her about the email situation. Washington Post comes out, says 104 of the emails written by her, either responsibly, Hillary Clinton, on her private server that had some classified material in it. And then he asked her about the whole notion that the guy who set up the private server has been granted immunity from the Justice Department. Listen to the choice of words your candidate has. Here they are.
I'm delighted that he has agreed to cooperate, as everyone else has. And I think that we'll be moving toward a resolution of this.
So you
Because
see this
after
as-
all,
You see this as good news?
I'm sorry, what, John?
You see this as good news?
Yeah, I do. Absolutely.
Delighted?
I think it's confirmation of her confidence. Listen, she would be
Delighted?
delighted. She will be truly delighted when all of this is said and done. But this is a major step forward in getting this thing resolved. And if she is as confident as she has portrayed herself to be all of this time, she has no reason not to be truly delighted that things are moving forward.
Delighted? Okay, fine. Let's move to a topic that we talk a lot about on the radio. Marjorie Egan is obsessed with, now I am too. This is part of the bite we played for you at the top of the show. Marjorie raised the question the other day about, are the rules the same when a man debates one-on-one a woman? Whether it's Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton or potentially Trump and Clinton. We referenced the infamous Lazio thing when she was running for the United States Senate. He walked over to her with some sort of pledge. How dare she approach a woman? It's threatening. Well, there was a moment last night. Let's hear it one more time.
If you are talking about the Wall Street bailout, where some of your friends destroyed this economy,
You know,
excuse me, I'm talking.
Let him respond.
if you're going to talk, tell the whole story.
Let me start with you for a second. The other night at the Thursday night debate, Trump said to Rubio, excuse me, I'm talking. The exact same words. I never blinked. I cannot tell a lie. When he did it last night in that debate, I sat back for a second and said, can you do that with a woman, even as accomplished a woman as Hillary Clinton? Can you?
Well, that's a fascinating question. I would have to say that, yes, you can do it with a woman. Women have to play the same game in this hurly-burly
I'm not worried
year
about her. I'm talking
as
about the folks at
anyone.
home. Do the folks at home, do they recoil at a moment like that when it's a woman who's the recipient of that, excuse me, I'm still talking?
I think some people would recoil. I think she did a very good job of dramatizing her own outrage over what he did. It came across very well.
What was your reaction last night?
I think some people recoil and some people relate. I don't know a single woman in the workplace over the age of like 15 working at an ice cream shop who hasn't been in a meeting and had a man interrupt her and have it be totally okay. But, you know, heaven forfend, she interrupts a man and everyone says, hey, you know, Bob's talking here, let him finish. I have a hard time thinking that women didn't watch that and say, oh, been there.
If I can just add one thing too, I can't stand when people say that women who speak like politics are shrill. That word shrill drives me crazy. If a woman raises her voice 1 decibel, she's shrill. If a guy does it, he's aggressive. That
But wait a
drives
second.
me nuts.
Explain to me, though, if they're both right and I'm with them, how does Donald Trump, if he's the nominee, ever debate Hillary Clinton? This is his M.O. He's Bernie Sanders on steroids.
I think we're all waiting for the main event. It's going to be interesting to see
But
how
how
he
does
does
he?
it.
He taught. I mean, it was a great piece. I don't know who wrote it the other day, but somebody wrote one of the reasons. Oh, it was in the New York Times. I don't remember the guy's name on Sunday. Said one of the reasons he's been so successful, your guy, at deflecting attacks is he talks over all the attacks. He interrupts the attacker. He couldn't interrupt Mitt Romney. How does he? What does he do on the same stage with her?
It's sort of his MO. I mean, you watch any episode of The Apprentice, I think you see him do the same thing with the women there, and I think he's learned how to modulate himself in a way that doesn't seem to offend people. It's pretty wild.
But it offended people when you talked about Carly Fiorina's looks and was pretty dismissive
Agreed.
of her. I mean, I
Agreed.
think there's reason to believe that
How's
this
she
isn't
doing in the
gonna
race, by
well.
the way?
No, but he got legitimate pushback for that in a way that he
understand.
hasn't necessarily for the other many unseemly comments
If
he's
I can
made.
say one thing
Quick,
about that,
10 seconds.
He's been a politician for 7 months. I mean, he's learning on the job. This is some new arena for him, I think, in a lot of ways.
Pleasure to
I
meet you.
think it's going to be a circus.
Thank you. It is a circus. What do you mean, Jesse? Great to
Good to
see you.
see you.
Thanks, Jim.
Representative, thanks so much for your time.